Welcome back to inBROZtigators, digging into kind of the heart of the matter. The last time we were talking about the planning of the parade leading to the untimely death of President Kennedy. So now we're going to start talking about the day of, which if you're following along with us, begins on page 43 of the Warren Commission report. Pages 43 to 46, they really go into detail of the people that are participating in the parade. Like when you envision the Zapruder film, right? You think of that limousine driving through the triple overpass area or in front of the school book depository. But it's kind of eerie to see the picture just going through the crowd of people before the ultimate event.
They were supposed to be looking out for like open windows and like I guess things that could pop up or potential dangers alongside the street. They also said that they had motorcycles ahead to keep people off the street. So it did mention that there was some type of preparedness in case something were to go wrong.
Yeah, that the plan is just to like look for an open window.
I thought it was weird in the sense that like they went into some detail, but they clearly didn't go to all details because I would imagine Secret Service has like a book in terms of what they need to do to prepare for like these types of things. And I guess one of the key things, the main reason why they didn't put the bubble on top of the limousine, like the bulletproof glass, is because it was sunny.
Well, they say it's not bulletproof. They say it's just plastic.
Okay, but that's still some type of protection. But at the very least, you would know where the bullets were coming from, right? If it was on there, that would be definitive.
I guess if you were planning for there to be bullets,
right.
Be helpful. Yeah, they went through a lot of effort to explain away why there was no bubble, right? Because I guess there must have been some prevailing thought that the bubble offers some sort of protection, and it was like it points to this conspiracy if there is no bubble, right? And in modern times we think of like, what comes to my mind is kind of a Pope mobile. How there's that bubble, and like the Pope's bubble is bulletproof. To be fair, I guess the Pope learned a little bit from Kennedy. They do take a lot of effort in explaining why it's not, I guess, a failure to omit the bubble, right? I don't know, there's something there or not. Personally, like my spidey senses, I don't detect any issue with that. But the amount of effort that went into it makes me feel like I should.
To me, it was just more or less the reason why they didn't use the bubble was because it was a nice day. It was almost as if the bubble was there just to protect the president against rain, not bullets. But
yeah,
I feel like
why would we worry about bullets? We just don't want
rain, right?
Him to get wet.
Yeah, raindrops. But I think in like a documentary that we've seen, I think part of the discussion, or I guess the real reason behind it, was that it was more of a personable feel to not have the bubble, and because the whole point of him there was for the campaign. Like they were trying to. It was just too nonchalant. Like, oh, nice weather, so no bubble. That's it.
No bubble.
No bubble.
You need a bubble. The really interesting parts of this chapter of the report occur on page 49. There's a lot of interesting info on this page. Talk about the Zapruder film. They say, in quotes, right, since the camera operates at a speed of 18.3 frames per second, it was calculated that the car, the presidential limousine, not their words, the car, they're talking about the presidential limousine, required 8.3 seconds to cover the 136 feet. This represents a speed of 11.2 miles per hour. So to me, the first thing that jumps out is the people writing the Warren Commission report had access to the Zapruder film, one. Two, there's a lot of precision here, right? They've narrowed it down to how many frames per second are in the film, and they use it to calculate the speed of the presidential limousine. So to me, it says that this report is using this as a key piece of evidence, showing that it's accurate and can be believable. And they're using it to calculate the speed of the limousine. I don't know there's much to do with it, but it speaks a lot to later aspects of this report, things that were omitted, things that were included, things that we've come to learn as the public, because when this report was published, the Zapruder film was kept confidential, so it wasn't made available to the general public. anytime you read this report and they talk about the Zapruder film, the reader should ask themselves, okay, the author here, I think, was operating under the presumption that the reader would never actually see the film itself to be able to, make their own determination on the conclusion made by the author.
The reason why the speed is so important is that it seemed like there were people there that thought the limousine was actually going much slower than what they suggested. And to me, the speed and why it's important is that they're trying to present a case that this happened quickly, right? He did the 3 shots in 6 seconds. It happened so quick. No one knew how to react type of deal. Whereas I get a sense that things actually happen much slower, which would be more plausible for more shots to actually occur. Because where I get really confused, and I know we're probably going to get into this, and maybe this is a good segue, was where when the shots were happening, they did have that Secret Service agent that jumped on the back of the car where Jackie Kennedy was. And I just think, like, how was he able to do that so quickly if the car never really slowed down that slow? I think they said maybe it gets down to 8 or 9 miles per hour. Or maybe they don't really get too detailed as far as at that exact moment how slow the car goes. But he basically hopped off from one car to another car in a matter of seconds. And that to me has always been very puzzling to me.
Yeah, 11.2 miles per hour seems really fast to run. To be fair, I mean, I guess, elite athletes can run 20 miles an hour. They say total distance covered and total time. So they're giving the average speed. Maybe there's something to that, right? So if you're saying that it was going fast, slowed down, stopped, went faster again, maybe the introduction of the average speed is meant to take your attention away from the fact that the speed changed during that period of time, during that 8.3 seconds, right?
Well,
it wasn't going exactly 11.2 miles per hour the entire 8.3 seconds. It could have.
Well,
but having watched the film, right, it looks like it changes speed during that time, right?
No, it definitely slows down in the film if you watch it.
Right.
But there's conspiracies or witnesses to say that they actually saw the car stop. Like they physically saw it slow down. I've seen conspiracy theories as far as like the Zapruder film has been doctored. And I think that's why this is so key, that they want to maintain that the car never really slowed down and that it continued going. If in fact it did stop, that would raise even more questions, because if someone gets shot or if someone is shooting at you, why would you stop? Or why would you even slow down? When your immediate reaction is to actually speed up. But the fact that the driver slowed down was always weird to me. And the fact that there's reports or conspiracies or witnesses saying that they actually saw the car stop seems really weird to me. Wouldn't you think you'd be trained to hit the gas right away? But your initial reaction is to slow down?
Hard to say. I don't know how I would react in that situation, but, it is interesting, right?
I mean, think about where they're at. The driver is looking straight under the underpass. They're going right on a highway. The most natural thing to do is hit the gas. Because the moment you get under that underpass, that's more protection. That should be like an instant thought. Like you're sitting in a driver's seat, someone's shooting at you. Hit the gas. You're right. Yeah. You're right on the highway.
The next thing struck me. So it says, Governor Connally, on page 49, testified that he recognized the first noise as a rifle shot. And the thought immediately crossed his mind that it was an assassination attempt. From his position in the right jump seat immediately in front of the president, he instinctively turned his right because the shot appeared to come from over his right shoulder. Unable to see the president as he turned to the right, Governor started to look over his left shoulder, but he never completed the turn because he felt something strike him in the back. In his testimony before the commission, Governor Connally was certain that he was hit by the second shot, which he stated he did not hear. This description of Connally's testimony contradicts kind of the main theory of the Warren Commission report, because, the whole, I guess, the magic bullet theory, so to speak. He says he hears a shot and then he's hit by the second shot. And then they say, well, he didn't hear the second shot. The author here is saying, paraphrasing, I guess that's the key point. To me, no quotations. Why? You have, in my opinion, and from my perspective, from the details here, the most believable witness is Connally, because he's as close as Mrs. Kennedy, as close as Mrs. Connally, but he actually struck by a bullet, right? So his recollection of sounds and feelings, I feel, is going to be a lot stronger than someone who is just observing sounds.
From what I remembered, he said he could see the president get hit, and then he got hit, which would indicate
Yeah.
that those were two separate shots, his wound
Right.
and the president's wound. But nonetheless, the pattern that they're trying to present within the Warren report is that there's 3 shots, second one hits, but the third one's the fatal one, and it seems like everything revolves around that pattern.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fact that they do not quote the witness saying what he observed, they paraphrase it and change it from what was actually said. So it's one thing if you're like trying to discredit someone who is, just your average, person watching the parade and saying, well, maybe they weren't paying attention, maybe they were mistaken, you know. But here you're talking about the governor of Texas who was shot, and you're saying, he probably doesn't remember when he was shot. He didn't hear it, You know how it is when you get shot, you don't remember when things happen, right? I'm like, for me, I feel like if you get shot, you're going to remember a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it would be ingrained. Like,
Yeah, I would think so. And the fact that that's not quoted in a section that's just filled with quotes, right? but but his quotes don't make the cut, right? Because what? He's not credible, or
it just
his
seems like
quotes.
a clever tactic because, like, you get
Yeah,
so used to reading quotes, you get down to that point, you just envision it being a quote. You're gonna remember that being a quote rather than, you know, a summary or whatever, a paraphrase or whatever they're doing to it. So
the next interesting thing, and these are in quotes, and these are sprinkled throughout pages 49 and 50, are the use of the word they. Mrs. Kennedy is quoted as saying, this is on page 49, oh my God, they have shot my husband, right? And then on page 50, Kellerman is quoted as saying, Mrs. Kennedy cried out, what are they doing to you? And then Governor Connally on page 50, he gets his quotation and he says, oh no, 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 my God, they are going to kill us. 2 different people saying they, and a third person corroborating that the first person said they. And that is their in the moment kind of present sense perspective of what's happening.
this is what's so crazy to me. Like, this is probably one of the most important parts of this report, and it just quickly gets glossed over. And it's just there's
Yeah.
no. It's almost as if, okay, well, this is just how they reacted. No big deal. But for 3
Right,
different
no big
people
deal.
to say they,
They.
that's a very
But
clear indicator because, like, for us being on that street, I think they pretty much have an idea of what's happening. I think if you were there and you felt like multiple people were shooting at you, I think you would know.
and going back to the theme of quotes, no quotes, they talk about the testimony of another Secret Service agent, Agent Hill, and it says, at about the time they're referring to Hill, this is on page 51, reached the president's automobile, Hill heard a second shot, approximately 5 seconds after the first, which removed a portion of the president's head. The wild thing about this is there's no quotes.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more important sections, and it just doesn't seem like they put too much time into the. Like, they give you the details, but then it's just like there's nothing that, like, leads from it, right? Multiple people said that there's they, right? Why
Mhm.
didn't they expand on that? Why didn't they go into, like, okay, what would possess someone to say they? Why didn't they ask him when you said they, what did you mean by they? And then
Yeah, I
they would have
mean
been like, well, we
those
heard shots
are
there, and there, right? Like,
right. Yeah, those are interesting things. I want to say that Mrs. Kennedy's not was not part of the like she wasn't interviewed. Like I don't think she's in the report, but she may be. We'll have to double check. But yeah, well, it would be interesting to see if Kellerman and if Connally's actual testimony is in um the appendix where they do all their interviews and stuff. And these would be interesting interviews to revisit. Although, Connolly gave a lot of interviews in video form where what he says does not match the Warren Commission report's conclusion. That's one of the biggest things that causes me to question the validity of the report. This and some of the videos of the railroad guys who talk about seeing someone at the grassy knoll, right, and the stuff related to that. I think there are a lot of questions left unanswered, and that's why we're digging into it. We're reading through the report, walking through it, asking questions. Critical reading, I guess, is what you would call it, right? So I guess thank you for joining us for this walk through the Warren Commission report. As you read through it, follow along with us. If you see something that makes you ask some questions, point it out. Tell us what your questions are. Put it in the comments, and we'll keep digging together.